Good morning, St. Francis, and good morning, people of God. It is Friday, the 26th day of January, 2024, Friday of the third week of the year, the third week in Ordinary Time. Today, we also honor the memory of Saints Timothy and Titus, two of the, we don't know much about them, but both of them have books, or letters in the New Testament. Both of them seem to have been some sort of early church leaders. Were they both bishops of some sort, or were they some kind of other leader? It's never that clear. Timothy seems to be a leader, seems to be somebody who was able to lead the Christian community. And what happens is that Paul basically writes a letter to him, telling him what kind of leader he's supposed to be, and making sure that he is leading the Christian community with authenticity and with right judgment, and in a sense of obligation, to them. The Titus is a little bit less clear. While Titus sort of writes letters, he also writes them from the standpoint of Paul. So it's a bit confusing as to who's actually writing the letter and what the letters are about. Titus seems to have been left in Crete, the little island that's off of the Greek coast, that larger island off the Greek coast, in which he is kind of clearing up some issues there. We don't know what those issues are. So that's Timothy and Titus. Behind me is the Mary Ann Cope Playground, St. Mary Ann Cope Playground. I forgot to mention that I forgot to do this in front of the playground on Tuesday when it was her feast day. But this is our playground, again, our preschool right over here, one of our buildings, Elizabeth Hall, right over there. And so just to show everybody our wonderful Mary Ann Cope Playground there, named for St. Mary Ann Cope. Our readings for today, because it is this memorial, again, we're breaking away from Samuel, so we really haven't heard Samuel in a number of days, but we'll get back to him next week. But we hear, you have two choices for the first reading. You have from the letter of Timothy, in which Paul basically is telling Timothy to be a good leader, a good bishop, although he never actually says bishop, but again, the understanding is probably was that kind of office that he held, but you can be somebody who is always mindful of the care of the people that have been entrusted to him, and to make sure that he leads in that way. Again, in Paul's in the early church, probably in the time in which Paul is even writing, again, there is no such thing as, well, there are presbyters, but there's no such thing as priests as we understand it today. There are either bishops or there are deacons, and those were the leaders of the early church for several centuries until Christianity becomes more and more numerous, and more and more present on the historical scene. Titus is the second reading, and they're basically, the only thing that is said about that reading is that Paul has left Titus in Crete to clean up some mess that's there. So that's what you get in the first two readings. The importance, again, always of listening to Timothy, is again, what is a bishop supposed to be? It's again, perhaps it's one of the most difficult jobs to have. You can either do very poorly at it, or you can try to do well at it, but you can many times find your hands tied because of a lot of different things that are going on. There's, church rules and church laws, and, what you understand in your heart needs to be done, and all kinds of things that can get in the way, perhaps, of authentic leadership that can be informed by the Spirit. And that's why the position of being a bishop is never something that is very easy, or something that perhaps should not be welcomed as such, as a promotion, or as some kind of benefit, or some kind of accolade. But, again, it is something that is a part of our church life, and something that, again, we continue to have to see where God is active in the midst of that, and where God can lead those who lead us into the right decisions. In Mark's gospel, we have Jesus, again, speaking in a series of parables. And it just kind of goes back and forth. But they are parables about the kingdom of God. And this is, again, the question of Jesus comes to proclaim this, but what is it? And how are we supposed to understand it? And it is not always clear where you can just say that this is the definitive answer as to what Jesus is talking about when he proclaims the kingdom of God. And so what we need to learn about it, we need to glean from these parables. And so two today, the one of man who sows seed and scatters it left and right and all over the place, and goes to bed and rises and goes to bed and rises and goes to bed day after day, day after day, day after day, and the seed sprouts and it becomes wheat, and the man doesn't know how it happens. And again, yeah, in Jesus' time they wouldn't know how it happened, but it was miraculous. It was something that kind of just worked on its own. So the first kind of lesson to learn about the kingdom of God is that it is not something that we can form, that we can force, that we can control. There are many people who try to do that, who try to think that this is the church, that this is the true church, that this is the only church, and the church is then the kingdom of God, and it is not. It is a means, sometimes a good means, sometimes a troublesome means, but it is not the kingdom of God. The other part of it, the other parable that's offered to us is that of the mustard seed. Again, the smallest of seeds that grows into this tremendous bush, this tremendous plant, where the birds of the air can find their nests and things like that. Mustard seeds do grow in that way. Not all mustard seeds, but that analogy, that's something that is small and insignificant, and again, not the smallest of seeds. There are now smaller seeds than the mustard seed, but that thing that becomes so great can oftentimes be neglected, not known, not paid attention to, and yet it becomes something miraculous. It becomes something overwhelming and something that is incredible to observe. Two hints about what the reign of God is like. It may begin small, it may begin, not with large numbers, it may begin something that we might not have thought could ever happen, and then it blossoms before us. And we need to take delight in it and realize God's hand at work within it. A blessed day, St. Francis and people of God. May the Lord give you his peace.